I'm Scott Trebilcock, CEO of Core Mining. Thank you very much for taking some time to listen to our presentation here at the Denver Gold Forum. Thank you to the Denver Gold Forum for putting on this incredible showcase of the gold mining sector. I'll be making some forward-looking statements during this presentation. I encourage all potential shareholders and those interested in the company to please review our disclosure on our website, coremining.com, and at SEDAR, the disclosure organization in Canada, for our listing on the TSX Venture Exchange. We're also listed on the OTCQX under CoreF. Now, let me start off with talking a little bit about why I am a shareholder of Core. I own about 4% of Core Mining myself, and beside with the rest of management and the board, we own collectively 38% of Core. We are aligned with our shareholders in delivering per share value. So let's talk a little bit about some of the characteristics Core has and about why we are excited about our share ownership. First, Core has a portfolio of North American gold projects. That's low-risk, stable jurisdictions. We're in California and British Columbia. We've put together great district-scale exploration plays around 3 great resources, and we'll talk about those projects in detail a little bit here. We've put out preliminary economic assessments of 2 of those resources. So 2 of those projects collectively at $1,600 gold, we've got almost $1 billion Canadian in NAV in Core. And Core is currently only a $150 million company. So we believe that there's a lot of value to be created by advancing and bringing these assets. And that's what those studies around Imperial and Long Valley show. We've got multiple near-term value catalysts in the company. We raised a significant amount of capital from Eric Sprott over the last 12 months. He's been supportive through 3 rounds of financing, leaves the company with $10 million cash in the bank in order to advance these assets, deliver news flow to the market, and try and close that valuation gap Core has with its peer companies, which are US gold developers. The ounces we have in the ground, we have almost 4.9 million ounces of combined resources in the ground, 2.5 million M&I, 2.4 million inferred across 3 projects, million ounces in British Columbia, and almost 4 million ounces in California in 2 heap leach gold projects. The PEAs around those 2 US gold projects are pretty stellar. They have Core on track to becoming a 250,000 ounce gold producer if we put both those projects into production. We're currently working on permitting the Imperial Project to become a mine on the back of the PEA. That's because we're very confident as a board we have enough data and the project is well configured because of the historic work done that we can move it immediately from PEA into permitting. At Long Valley, we're going out and drilling and growing the quality of that study and that resource. And we're really excited about that growth. But look at these numbers. We've got a high IRRs. We've got almost $1 billion in NAV at $1,600 gold. And we've got very reasonable all-in sustaining costs, despite complying with the very stringent environmental and reclamation standards in California. So I think that's a great recipe for social license to operate, and a great reason why we will be able to advance this portfolio of projects and deliver this $1 billion in value to Core shareholders. You know, as the gold price appreciates, we've seen it touch $2,000. I'm sure, as everyone's aware, you know, at $2,000, Core would have almost 1.6 billion in NAV in these projects. So that just shows the kind of leverage you can get from the equities over the gold price. And I'm sure that's why a lot of you are out there are considering making investments in the gold equities. Core has a work program that we've been unfolding over the course of 2020. We've kept this chart very stable to show that we can deploy capital and deliver results. We've built up a team both in California at our Imperial Project and in our headquarters office in Vancouver, Canada. We've moved the Imperial Project towards the start of permitting. We're currently working on configuring and getting consultants rolling on the environmental impact assessment for the project, working with our regulator, the Bureau of Land Management. We delivered a PEA at Imperial, geophysics targeting, and we're currently working on a second round of targeting to set up drill permitting that'll have us out there drilling late this year to try and make some new discoveries in this incredible land package we have around our Imperial Project. At Long Valley, we first went in and built the geologic database, completed a PEA, and we're currently permitting drilling to go out there and advance the technical work and grow the resource at Long Valley and make some new discoveries at depth. So very exciting there as well. We are also drilling at our BC project up in the Caribou region of BC. We've got 1,000 square kilometers anchored around a 1 million ounce resource. And we're trying to be the next developer side by side with the Cisco Gold Royalties in the Caribou. We're going to be moving into drilling a second target on the Caribou Gold Project at Gold Creek in a few weeks. So a lot of pending news flow on Core. All of our projects are low elevation, road accessible. The drilling is relatively inexpensive. We don't have to fly in helicopters. And because we have projects in California and BC, we can drill all year round. So I think it set up the company to be able to deliver news flow continuously to the market and keep attracting attention and eyeballs into Core story. The cap structure of Core is that we've kept it very tight. Like I said earlier, we've raised a significant amount of capital from Mr. Eric Sprott. He owns 26% of the equity. He also owns all of the warrants. We don't have any 4-month hold paper outstanding that's going to come back from a general marketed raise in the company, and management still has 38%. So I think we're sitting side by side with our shareholders. We've started to see some traction in the public float trading with analysts in Toronto. We've got Nick and Chris firmly behind the story with $2 plus targets on the name, and we're on the watch list at a few other Canadian brokers. So lots of research that can be accessed on Core Mining. The company also looks cheap when you compare it to our peer group. I've put up here a peer group of US gold developers: Liberty, Gold Standard, Integra, Corvus, and Midas. These are all companies that have been around 3 to 5 years. They've all attracted strategic investments from other mining companies. Liberty has marketed very hard their exploration upside. You can see their premium valuation. And then we have Core sitting down at the end at 140 million. You know, I attribute that partially to the newness of Core. We've only recently come into the market. We've only been doing work on our assets since January this year. We've only had capital really since Eric Sprott's investment in August last year, building out our management team and working our assets. So we've got a long way to go to mature the capital market side of this company as we move forward with our assets and doing work on the ground. I'm now going to spend just a little bit of time here going through each of the assets, making sure that I stay on time and give some time for questions at the end. I'm going to start on Long Valley. At this point, I usually go into Imperial as the most advanced asset in the company, but we put out a great PEA on our Imperial Project very recently. You can see, as I like to think, a picture says 1,000 words. This is a picture of our Long Valley. This is looking right over the resource. You can actually see those straight lines going off in the horizon, or some of the old drill roads used to drill out the deposit in the 90s. So we're on a cattle lease on U.S. Forest Service ground, although despite being on Forest Service ground, it's not a forest. The Long Valley deposit is 1.7 million ounces. It's an intact epithermal deposit, so that's an oxide sitting on top of sulfides. The deposit was primarily drilled for oxides back in the 90s. The project's located near to infrastructure. We're close to populations that can provide labor. We are 5 miles from a significant highway and not that far from an interstate. So this is has the benefit of all the infrastructure you'd normally have in California, but it's in quite a remote location on the east side of the Sierra Nevada, just close to the Nevada border, due south of Reno, across the California border. We've got a great shallow resource here. The preliminary mine plan that we've put around the project shows us full compliance with California's backfilling law. So in California, and one of the key things to getting social license for the gold business going forward will be compliance with their backfilling regulations. And that requires you to leave the site in a near greenfield state. So you return to the original topography, you revegetate, and it's like a mine was never there. We've put forward a mine plan that is fully compliant with that standard. That's simply due to the very shallow nature and low strip ratio of the Long Valley resource. The all-in sustaining costs, even with that compliance, you can see it there in the $94 per ounce in the closure, is $732 per ounce. That puts us in the low end of the second quartile. Very much looks like these are ounces that should come out of the ground. So great economic results. Capital intensity is also very strong. It's kind of right in the middle of our peers. And if we're successful with the drill bit, as we believe we will be, adding more oxide resources, making it just on-strike discoveries, that'll just come down because that material will feed into the same capital cost to bring down that capital intensity. So we think that's going to improve over time as we get out there with the drill bit next year. The capital cost breakdown is in a heap leach pad project, very typical. We've got a mine fleet, heap pads, and the ADR plant, and just a little bit infrastructure. And again, that's what the simplicity of heap leaching and being in an infrastructure-rich area can get you, is these very low capital numbers. We saw it at Imperial, and we've seen it again at this Long Valley project. When you put all those pieces together, you end up with a very strong project at $1,600 gold, generating a $263 million US NPV5. The project is robust down to about $1,200 gold. I think it breaks below a 20% IRR. So great project, something we think we can easily grow the oxide ounces, and that is our next focus. One other thing to mention is the deposit in the past was only assayed for gold in fire assays. In the metallurgical work, it looks like there's some silver potential, and that's something we'll also be chasing down in all drilling going forward on the project. We do have some great oxide targets we defined with the geophysics and field work earlier this year. You can see a couple news releases on our website that show we've got some really interesting looking alteration at surface, some geophysics signatures of what looks like the altered rock, and we think we got some other oxide here. So we're going to go in and drill some of those targets and try and grow that oxide resource, improve the numbers in that PEA. While at the same time, we're going to run some of those holes long to depth and test to see if there's any high grades in the feeder structures. That's the sulfides underlying this big, thin oxide resource. There's this large rock mass underneath, some of it mineralized at the bottom of the holes, and see if we can find some great grades in the sulfides. That'll be another exploration objective in our first round of drilling when it gets permitted late this year or early next year. Okay, stepping into asset number 2. Remember, there's 3 legs to the core story. We have 3 assets we're working on. The second was Imperial. Again, I'll go back to my adage of a picture says 1,000 words. This is the looking at where the heap leach pads will be at the Imperial Project. It's flat, open, Sonoran desert, low vegetation, well studied in the past by previous operator Glamis Gold, well drilled out. We've completed a PEA on this project. But like everything in California or anywhere really in the world for mining, your ability to permit a project is all about location. And we think we've got a great location here in Imperial County. Our Chief Operating Officer, Mark Ledoux, is experienced in permitting in California. He did the Castle Mountain project for Newcastle Gold, which sold to Equinox. And Equinox, I think just last week at the Precious Metals Summit, announced that that project was starting leaching, so it's going into production. And I think we're real excited that Mark was real driver behind that project. He's doing it again for us here at Imperial County. We're out in the county on a regular basis. He's going down again next week. We're engaging with the local communities, informing them about the mine and letting them know that there's going to be another mining operation in their already mining rich history. Currently, there's a US Gypsum and the Mesquite gold mine in the county. There's a local BLM office, and there is a county here that's very familiar and has a long history of gold mining. So I think we've got a great backing inside our county to get this project to move forward. We also benefit from that, from the infrastructure, from those things, particularly from the Mesquite mine, which is 9 miles or so to the west and north of our asset. We've got a power line that goes right over our project. Their employees drive right by our project on the way to work. So we've got a ready and able and skilled workforce. We've got a water well and network of monitoring wells drilled in sites. We believe we've got a great accessible aquifer to use water for the project. We've got all the elements you need for a low-cost project, and you see it in the economics. Imperial has great economics at a very conservative $1,450 gold price. We've got a $343 million NAV, a great IRR. We produce almost 150,000 ounces of gold. And I think as we de-risk Imperial, it's really going to start coming on the radar of mid-tier mining companies looking for growth. And that is one potential exit for a core shareholder as we go through this cycle, is that core is going to do their best to get this project in production. But if someone comes along and is willing to reward our equity holders for funding this development, there could be a big win here for shareholders. In addition to this great project on the current resource, we've also got some great opportunities to expand the resource and even make new discoveries for entirely separate projects from Imperial. Our current focus, we have 20,000 acres of exploration ground. Our current focus is on the portion that is out towards that Mesquite mine I mentioned earlier. Mesquite, just for your information, was built in 1985 by Goldfield, so it's been operating in this county for 25 years. It's produced almost, saying, 7 million ounces to date. It has, I think, almost 9 million ounces of total endowment, and they're currently processing about 0.3 grams per ton up there. We have the claims that go right up to the edge of their mineralized area, and we can actually trace the fault structures that control both our Imperial deposit and we believe also controls the deposits at Mesquite between the two projects. So there's a good likelihood we can make a discovery in between on that structure. So we're out right now doing some additional follow-up field work, and we have a large exploration program in permitting with the Bureau of Land Management, permitting for the drill pads, so that we can go out and hit some of these targets starting late this year, subject to getting those permits in place. So excited to get out there and start testing for growth at Imperial and creating and generating some of that real blue sky buzz around this already great, simple heap leach gold project. Finally, the third leg to the story at Core is in the South Caribou region of British Columbia. In this region, Core has 1,000 square kilometer land package. We put that land package together a couple months ago to really give some meat and heft to our Gold Creek and FG Gold projects. Gold Creek is a gold discovery where we're putting a few additional holes in later this year, and FG Gold is the anchor resource for this belt. It's 1 million ounces that we're currently drilling to better define the structure and understand the resource, and to grow it at depth where we're having some success, and do some step outs and show that this deposit can get bigger and become the next mine in the belt. If you go up to the north of this map, you're all on Osisko Gold Royalties, Barkerville project and their 1,000 square kilometer block of the North Caribou. So we're really splitting this camp with Osisko Gold Royalties, and hopefully they are successful in advancing Barkerville into production. I think that's going to put the Caribou back on the radar screen. I think it's a better location than the Golden Triangle. You're on infrastructure, you can drive to the site, you've got power and labor, you're not flying in drill rigs. This is a place if you can find a good deposit, you can mine in a low cost way and come up with some, great value. Diving in a little bit into that 1,000 square kilometers and zooming into the FG Gold resource. Here our 1 million ounces is located in that little skinny red bit on the right side of the map. The prospective rock group that hosts that mineralization extends on that U shape that includes all of the orange areas. We've also got something called the Bowl Zone, which looks like it could be some additional gold mineralization, and a porphyry up on the hill. So this is a project generating a lot of mineralization. We believe we've got a good opportunity to get out there with the drill bit, define the structure of this resource, better understand it, upgrade the grade, and then start upgrading and growing the ounces by step outs and looking at depth. Some of the results we've seen to date in 2020, we've drilled some of the highest grade intercepts ever in this resource, which was already well drilled in the 80s and 90s. We're seeing good upgrades from our metallic screens. So we're using a more expensive form of assaying. You take a larger sample, split it into fractions, and assay it. You're trying to better capture the effect of the coarse gold. That is the nature of this ore body. This is a vein-driven gold system with coarse gold. So far, we've been very successful. We've also discovered some new veins at depth in the rock group, as well as some veins in a new rock group called the lower zone underneath that, that projected plunge you can see in the diagram to the right. And we're also doing some step outs on strike. So let's see if those holes hit something and show that we've got, a tiger by the tail with another gold project here in BC that could be the third leg to Core's development pipeline. So taking that all back around into close, Core is well funded. We're doing work on the ground with a great exploration team. That should generate a catalyst-rich environment in the equity because we've got lots of things to talk about and happening inside the company. We've built a great exploration team anchored around the old Balmoral exploration team with a gentleman named Mike Tucker leading a GIS and field team that's out drilling in BC. That team will be changing its focus to California later this year as we start getting our permits in. We hope to be drilling at Imperial late this year and into next year, and following that up with drilling at Long Valley in 2021. So, hopefully Core is going to keep rolling through 2020. We've had a great first half of the year, but we've got a long way to go to close the valuation gap with our peers, given the quality of our assets. And I'd encourage everybody looking at this presentation, come give our website a look, reach out, talk to the company. Even if you didn't meet us here at the Gold Forum at Precious Metals Summit, reach out. We'd love to have you on board. We're still a small company. We know a lot of our shareholders, and have a look at coremining.com. Thank you. I'm going to stop now and move into a Q&A session. All right, just looking at the question list here. The first question I get is why did you put in such a high mining rate at the PEA for Long Valley? That's a good question. If we actually go back up to the PEA for Long Valley, we actually put in a mine plan. So we're mining about 1 million ounces in the mine plan, mostly oxides and a little bit of sulfides. That generates about 700,000 ounces of production and a 7-year mine life, which is a bit short. We did that because we believe we've got good line of sight to growing that oxide component of that resource. That would allow us to add more material to a future study, grow the mine life of the project with the drill bit, using that same capital investment and mine fleet that we've already put in place. So, we scope the project knowing that we believe it'll grow, knowing that, 7 years is a fairly short mine life. All right, looking at the next question here. Okay, we've got a question here about the cap structure of Core, and where did Eric get all his warrants? So, we did 3 rounds of financing with Eric Sprott, August, I think May and July, August of 19, May and July of 2020. On the first 2 share issuances to Eric, they were without warrants. On the $7 million financing we closed in July, he got a half warrant, so he ended up owning all of the warrants of Core. As a reminder, the cap structure of the company has Eric holding 26% plus those warrants. Management is at 38%, and that includes the board. And then the public float is 36%. So we've seen some decent equity in that, or some liquidity in that 36%. Let me look here at the queue for the next question. Let's see. Next question here. They've got, tell me more about permitting for the Imperial Project. What are the timelines? That's a very common question we get. We've had a team on the ground now for about 6 months working on permitting aggressively behind that PEA. The team is, recently been engaged heavily with the Bureau of Land Management and is getting a good view of the path forward. We're currently planning on 2 years to a record of decision and 3 years to be able to break ground and build the mine. It's then a very short construction, so we'd expect to be in production in, at this point, less than 4 years. Let's see, next question. The question is about capital allocation. How do you allocate capital between the projects? It's a good question. Certainly it's a very interesting topic at the board. 12 months ago when Core was a smaller company and the markets were not actively rewarding companies for exploration, the company was very much focused on advancing and de-risking Imperial into and through the permitting process, knowing that it should be a mine. As markets has evolved and we've raised equity in the company, we've aggressively moved into exploration. The reason I originally invested and came into Core as CEO was the fact that it was a portfolio That gives you the opportunity to work across multiple assets, to diversify. If you have a delay at one project, you've got other work to do. It keeps your team busy and always chasing milestones. So I think we've set the company up for a great set of catalysts by working across those assets. We will always fund development and permitting of Imperial, and we will use excess capital to explore equally across all three assets. We like them all, and they'll get whatever can get permitted and get drill pads, we will drill. I only have a few minutes left here, so I am going to stop at this point. Thank you for submitting questions through the question app. I'll just wrap up by going back up to my original thesis, which is why invest in Coeur Mining. Coeur has an advanced portfolio of gold projects. We've got a lot of work happening on the ground at those assets that should deliver some great catalysts and news flow to the market over the course of 2020 and into 2021. We've got 2 projects that show almost $1 billion Canadian value in a $150 million market cap Coeur. And I think that shows the value potential Coeur can generate by de-risking our projects. You can follow some analyst coverage from PI and Cormark, read more about the company, reach out to us at couremining.com. Thank you very much. I'm Scott Trebilcock, CEO, and enjoy the rest of the Denver Gold Forum.